I read every Predator comic from 1989 to 2025 in chronological order of release, so you don't have to. But maybe you're wanting to immerse yourself in some Predator lore like a big, muscular, oily man taking a dip in a mud puddle. And I tell you what, there just might be some hidden gems in here for you. So let's get into it. Since there's a ton of Predator comic books with over 2,000 pages of content, we're going to keep this short as we cover every single book. This video will not include any crossovers, so we won't be talking about the Predator fighting Batman or Spider-Man, and no, not Archie either, okay? If you want to see a video about all those crossovers, consider leaving a like on this one to show you're interested. And who knows, maybe I'll make it. I don't know. Now, I'm going to tell you a little about each comic, mostly spoiler-free. If I spoil anything, it's because you don't need to read it and it's fine. A bit on my thoughts personally about the comic, the writing, the art, the direction, blah, 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 and whether or not it's worth a read. And for this video, we're not going with number reviews, okay? Number reviews are arbitrary in this situation. My number ratings don't mean the same as your number ratings, so for the review of each book, we're just going to give it a simple yes or no. Got that? Great. So the first comic we're looking at is the very first Predator comic book published by Dark Horse Comics. It was simply titled Predator. It is known nowadays as Predator Concrete Jungle. There is no official link to the Predator Concrete Jungle video game. It's just they happen to share the same name. This was released in 1989. It is 4 issues long. It was meant to be the template for the original Predator sequel, but after Arnold left the project over pay disputes, a few details were changed and it became a comic. So this is set in the modern day, a few years after the events of the first Predator movie. It follows police officer John Schaefer, who is Dutch's identical twin brother, and his partner Raish, as they uncover the mystery of Dutch's disappearance and stop an armada of predators from tearing through New York. I definitely see a lot of similarities between the Predator 2 movie and this. I liked this, and I do think that it is a necessary addition to the Predator lore, not only because it's about Dutch's brother, but also they expand on his character in future storylines. I did feel the ending was really anticlimactic, and there's not much closure on what happens to Dutch, which is fine. You know, I'm definitely into the open-endedness of it, but I would have kind of liked a little bit of detail, but we don't really get much. The artwork and coloring, though, is really solid for this era. I thought it was pretty neat. This does have 2 sequels, which we will come back to. But right now, I would give this a big yes. Okay, so next up, we're looking at Predator God's Truth. This was just a short comic book from 1990. It takes place in the early 1900s. It follows a group of prison guards as they track down an escaped convict running through a swamp as they are stalked by a predator. This is one of the few Predator comic books that was exclusively made in black and white. It's quick. It's only a few pages. It doesn't really expand on Predator lore, though. It's kind of your basic like human versus Predator story. And because of that, I'm going to say no. Okay, next we're looking at the Predator 2 comic adaptation. This was released in 1991. It was just 2 issues, pretty much beat for beat the Predator 2 movie. It is notable to mention that in this comic and in the movie, this is the first time that we see Owlif, Otherworldly Life Forms program, appear. They are a covert CIA program tasked with dealing with predators. Gary Busey actually leads an OWLF team in Predator 2. Their organization pops up quite a few times in Predator comics and Predator novels. So it's important to know that this is the introduction of this program. The art and the coloring is okay. Didn't love it. There are some minor changes and deletions from the original movie. Honestly, it's nothing to write home about, so don't worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and just say no on this one. You should just watch the movie. I think it's a much more streamlined experience. Okay, next, we're looking at Predator Big Game. Now, this one kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting too much from it. This is from 1991, 4 issues, modern-day setting. It follows a Native American Army guy named Nakai. He's a corporal in the U.S. Army, and a Predator ship goes down around the base he's stationed at. The Predator ends up just tearing through a bunch of dudes, blowing up the base and a helicopter. It's pretty sick. The main guy, he ultimately just kind of gets lucky, and, you know, he takes on the Predator, and everything kind of works out for him. Some of these elements were seemingly adapted into the Predator sequel Prey from 2022. Features a Predator fighting a mountain lion, which is similar to the Predator fighting a bear. It also has a lot of nods to Native American culture and folklore incorporated into the story itself. One thing I really didn't like about this is the main character, Nakai, doesn't really outsmart the Predator. He's not super tough, and he really just gets lucky, which I feel like definitely is a plausible way to beat a Predator, but his victory didn't really feel feel earned to me. I did really enjoy the art, though. There was some really gnarly, gory stuff in here, which I appreciated. Now, for Predator Big Game, I'm going to give this a yes, mainly because this does connect to future storylines, so I do feel like it becomes important later on in the overall arc of Predator comic books. Next, we're looking at Predator Cold War. This came out in 1991. It is 4 issues. It is the sequel to Concrete Jungle, the original Predator comic book. It's set a year after the events of that book. This one has a really interesting premise, and it features a scenario that is unusual for Predator lore in the sense that the entire thing takes place in Siberia, where it's super, super cold, and predators thrive in heat. So what is that situation like? It's also the height of the Cold War in this series, so Russian and U.S. relations are at an all-time peak intensity, and that kind of plays into a little bit of the paranoia surrounding a lot of the characters and events that play into this comic book. This one, to me, it felt like a cross between original Predator, The Thing, and The Hunt for Red October. Just really, really cool vibes. In this one, we pick up John Schaefer's story as he is forced to go into Siberia to deal with a predator threat there. Basically, some predators like kind of thawed out of some old ice, and now they're trying to find a way back home. Ends up teaming up with a Russian army lieutenant by the name of Lieutenant Ligashev. There's some interesting themes in this. They kind of tap into like ideas of like political greed and over-reliance on technology. And I did think, though, comparatively to Concrete Jungle and Big Game, this one did kind of have a toned down gore level, which is fine, but I just kind of expect some really gnarly stuff from my Predator content. The ending was better than Concrete Jungle, I thought. I thought that it did have a little bit more payoff for everything, as opposed to just ending like really anticlimactically. Is that a word? Sure. Yeah, I thought the ending was better, but not by much. I would still say this is a big yes. I would recommend this going forward into Predator comic books. It will come back in future storylines. So next, we're looking at Predator, The Bloody Sands of Time. This is from 1992, 2 issues, modern day setting. It starts off much the same way as the original Predator film. You got your military type guys in South America just blasting everyone in sight. Predator turns up and kills and skins everybody, classic Predator story. An army guy by the name of Joe Bob is framed for the Predator's actions, and a CIA lawyer is brought in to defend him. But about a quarter of the way through, the focus shifts to a French soldier fighting during World War I and having some run-ins with the Predator, essentially kind of helping the lawyer build a case for Joe Bob as evidence of the Predator's actions and decisions in previous situations. Yeah, this is really like a Predator in World War I scenario. You get to see the Predator like tear through like some army tanks and, get mustard gassed and whatnot. It's pretty cool. There's a good amount of gore and even some nudity. I did think the ending was a bit anticlimactic and leaves a little bit to be desired. No new additions to the Predator lore really either. I would say no, just because, this doesn't really come back for future storylines, and it's just another like Predator v Human story, which gets pretty old pretty fast. Next, we're looking at Predator Rite of Passage. This is a short comic book from 1992. No dialogue, just features a hunter in Africa who has a run-in with a predator. I thought the art was a bit cartoony. It's done by Rick Leonardi, who, if you know him, he has done a lot of work on Marvel Comics. I don't hate his art. I just don't think it's appropriate for the Predator comic books. It just didn't really sell it for me. And there were no additions to Predator lore. So I'm going to go ahead and say no. Moving on. Predator Blood Feud is what we're talking about next. This is also from 1992, another short comic book with a modern day setting. It's about a blind Japanese man named Juta, who is a martial artist and a scientist, and he's trying to create an infrared implant so that blind people can see in infrared. And it turns out that his ancestor was also a blind samurai guy who faced off against the Predator in the 18th century. This story is extremely convoluted and it's a bit meandering. It's a very tell, don't show experience. There's a lot of dialogue just talking about things that happened or what people are gonna do. There is even a moment where it talks about how 1,000 samurai faced off against a predator and lost, but you don't see any of that, which I thought was kind of lame. A bit light on gore as well. There is a nice little short samurai sword fight between the main dude and a predator, but ultimately I'm going to have to say no. Okay, next we're looking at Predator Race War. And no, it's not like the race wars from Fast and Furious. This is from 1992. It's 5 issues. This was not included in the Marvel reprints. So within the last couple of years, Marvel have taken possession of the rights of the Predator comic books, and now all Predator comic books are produced through Marvel. And a couple of years ago, they released full omnibuses titled The Original Years Volume 1 and 2. This one was left out of the omnibuses, which will become apparent once I get into what this is about. Basically, a Predator is hunting convicts within a maximum security prison, and the government has a covert ops team tracking down this Predator. They end up sending in one of the world's greatest trackers to unite the different ethnic groups within the prison and take down the Predator. It's essentially the human race versus the Predator race, hence the title Race War. There is some pretty racy and homophobic stuff in this, so I can definitely see why Marvel and Disney were a little apprehensive to include it in the omnibuses. Art isn't that great either. I also thought the Predator looked a little bit wonky and didn't love it overall. It seemingly sets up a sequel but doesn't actually go anywhere. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and say no on this one. Okay, next we're looking at Predator Pride at Nagasa from 1993. This is a short story. It's written by Chuck Dixon, a longtime Batman writer in the 90s. It's set in Tanzania in 1936. It follows a group of British park rangers who have a run-in with a local Tanzanian legend, which turns out to be a predator. Typical stuff, but the Predator does have a brief fight with some alligators, which I thought was a little neat. Short, art is decent, but no. All right, and then next we're looking at Predator Bad Blood. This is from 1993. It started off as a short comic book and then expanded fully into a 4-issue series. It is a modern-day setting. This one really took me by surprise. I was extremely pleased with the way this one went down. Essentially, the story follows an insane predator on the run from another group of predators. He crash lands in New Jersey after being shot down. This is where we get the first appearance of a predator enforcer, basically like a predator cop, and he hunts down this rogue predator known as a Bad Blood, along with a team of ex-CIA people. The predator mistakenly kills a bunch of dudes playing paintball and gets covered in paint, which I thought was pretty funny. This is easily one of the best Predator comic books. The story is unique, the art is solid. It does get a little hard to follow in the later issues, but there is tons of gore. So gory, I'm afraid to even show it in this video. I would highly, highly recommend this. Yes, there is also a character in this by the name of Mandy Graves, who does make future appearances in later comics. So this series is definitely essential to Predator comic books. Okay, next we're looking at Predator The Hunted City from 1993. This is set in 1940s New York. It's basically a Predator versus the mob situation. It's very stylized. It has a noir, pulpy vibe, which I really enjoyed. This is also the basis for a mission in the Predator Concrete Jungle video game. While I did enjoy this and it is short, I'm just going to go ahead and say no on this one because it doesn't tie into anything in the future and ultimately it's non-essential. All right, next we're looking at Predator Blood on Two Witch Mesa from 1994. This is sort of a sequel to Big Game, but a lot of it is just a big flashback. So it picks up where Enoch and Kai was left off from the previous series, and it kind of fills in a little bit about what happened to him after the events of Big Game. But the whole comic, like I said, is really just one big flashback to the early 1900s, where it's revealed that Nakai's grandfather encountered the exact same predator that Nakai ended up besting in the present day. Ultimately, I do think this doesn't really add much to Nakai's story. I thought it was cool. I would say, yes, read this, but it is ultimately skippable. So next, we're looking at Predator Invaders from the Fourth Dimension. This is from 1994. It takes place in the late 50s in Hollywood. Basically, it's about a B-movie director who makes a 4D movie that requires these special glasses to view. Turns out they can actually see through Predator's cloaking technology, and the whole comic kind of devolves into just one really big chase scene between a kid and a predator. At one point, the kid is driving like a hot dog car. It's a bit silly, but it is also a throwback to like 1950s B-movie era type stories, so it gets a pass for being a little silly. I liked the 1950s setting. I liked the idea of like everybody at the drive-in watching this 4D movie as a predator attacks. It's a neat little scenario, but overall I thought the comic was just okay. And because it doesn't connect to any future storylines, I'm going to go ahead and say no. Next, we're looking at Predator 1718. This was released in 1996, takes place in 1718. Obviously, it tells the story of Raphael Adolini and his run-in with a predator. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because it was the name engraved on the flintlock pistol that the predator Grayback gives to Danny Glover's character in the movie Predator 2. So you basically get the backstory behind how the predator obtained that flintlock pistol. I thought the art was great. There's some really great painted stuff in here that really pops and has a lot of really interesting action in it. It's short and sweet. Definitely would recommend this, not only because it fills in backstory from the Predator 2 movie, but also because it's short, the art is great, and it's a lot of fun. So yes. Okay, next is Predator Dark River. This is from 1996. 4 issues. This is the sequel to Concrete Jungle and Cold War. In this one, Schaefer meets a pilot who supposedly picked up Dutch in the chopper after the events of the first Predator film, and Schaefer forces him to go to South America with him to pick up Dutch's trail. While there, he discovers that a predator that he had a run-in with back in Concrete Jungle actually survived and is now angry and openly terrorizing a small South American country. And the predator also learned Spanish. This one felt pretty low stakes to me, and I also thought that there was less action than in the previous 2 series. Still no answers on what happened to Dutch, possibly for legal reasons or because the movies were planning on bringing him back at some point. I don't know, but this one ends up going nowhere as well. So it's just kind of back to square one with Dutch's whereabouts, which, whatever. I mean, most recent Predator Killer of Killers movie does establish that he is in cryosleep, so I guess the assumption is that at one point he just got picked up by the predators and thrown in cryostasis, whatever. Honestly, despite this being the sequel to what I feel are essential Predator comics, you can easily skip this one. There's really no new additions to the lore or anything happening, and the next time we see John Schaefer, it seems like this whole event didn't really faze him. So next up, we're looking at Predator Strange Row. This is from 1996. It's set in 1931. Basically, a group of hunters in the swamps of Louisiana have a run-in with the predator. One of them actually ends up tricking the predator into a sinkhole and takes him home and turns him into gumbo. Classic Cajun move. This one was short, simple. I thought it was kind of silly. No. Next, we get Predator Kindred from 1996. 4 issues, modern day setting with some flashbacks to the 50s. It follows a group of convicts that escape and ends up near a small town in Oregon. Coincidentally, a predator also turns up and starts terrorizing the town. We get the first introduction of a human predator in this comic book. Basically, a guy who in the 50s, his dad was killed by a predator, somehow has his own predator armor in the future, and he poses as the predator, but then a real predator turns up. I don't know. I kind of got lost reading this. I do like the idea of humans wearing predator armor. I think that's cool, but did think everything was very contrived and a bit forgettable. So I would say no. There are definitely better examples of humans wearing predator armor later on, so stay tuned for that. Next is Predator No Beast So Fierce from 1997. This is another black and white predator story. Short, easy. Basically, the predator fights a lion, but you don't really see it. So this is very skippable. No. Next, we're looking at Predator Hell or Hot Water from 1997. This was 3 issues, modern day setting. I really like this one. I thought this one has some interesting ideas and some incredible art. It's Gene Colan on the art. Did a lot of stuff for Batman back in the day. It's great, but it does look a little wonky at times with some of the Predator art, but overall, I was really sold. It follows a team of OWLF agents as they track down a predator who is hunting sea life underwater. But maybe there's more to this predator's motives than meets the eye, like giant prehistoric squids. There's some really great underwater action in here that I don't really think is featured in any other Predator comic book or movie, anything like that. So just a unique setting, unique premise. The ending kind of absolutely went bananas, and I wasn't expecting where it went. Highly recommend this. Big yes from me. Next, we're looking at Predator Primal from 1997. This was 2 issues. Modern day setting, seemingly, set in Alaska. Basically, the whole comic is a predator versus a grizzly bear, which the fight is pretty cool. It lasts for like a really long time, and the grizzly bear gets a few pretty good shots in. There's also a subplot about a park ranger who tries to put out a forest fire, presumably because Smokey the bear is busy fighting the predator, so I guess she has to do it. This was a little bit of fun, but ultimately I would say no, this is skippable. Next, we're looking at Predator Bump in the Night from 1997, another black and white predator story, modern day setting. It's a cute and horrifying little short story about 3 boys having a sleepover and spotting a predator. Basically, it doesn't end well for them, but it's fun, it's short, but ultimately I can't recommend this one. It is a no from me, dog. Next, we're looking at Predator Nemesis from 1997. This was 2 issues, set in London in the late 19th century. Follows former British military captain Edward Soames as he's enlisted by Mycroft Holmes, yes, that Mycroft Holmes, in a top secret British operation to track down the predator. I liked this. I liked the art. I liked the setting. It had a lot of potential, but it kind of felt a little bit short-lived. I mean, just being only 2 issues. One thing I really had a problem with this comic book is a lot of the lettering is in cursive. You find out later that were reading from Edward Soames's diary, and he just wrote it all in cursive. And to be honest with you, it made reading this a difficult experience. So this was skippable, I felt, but Edward Soames's character does play a pretty major role in future comic books. So because of that, I would say yes, you should give this a read because it does come back around later. Next, we're looking at Predator Hell Come a Walkin' from 1998. This is 2 issues set in the 1860s during the American Civil War. Basically, it's about a group of Union and Confederate soldiers with the help of some Native Americans and Jesse James who team up to stop a predator. There's some really great artwork in this by Dean Ornstrom, who also worked on Black Hammer. Good amount of gore, and I love the historical context and setting of this event. This is another Predator comic that wasn't included in the Marvel reprints. There's also some racy language in here for obvious reasons. If you can track it down, it's well worth a quick read. Yes. All right, next we're looking at Predator Captive from 1998. It's a modern day setting. It's about a billionaire who manages to catch a predator and keeps it alive in a big dome resembling a jungle while his company studies it. But maybe it's the predator who's actually doing the studying. You have to read to find out. This is some more great stylized art from Dean Ormston. It's a bit Jurassic Park-esque, and it turns out really bad for everybody involved. It's a quick, fun little comic, and I do recommend it because I just thought the art was great, and I thought the scenario was unique. So, yes. Okay, and now we're looking at Predator Demon's Gold. This is from 1998. It's another black and white story set during World War II. It's a quick little issue about some Nazis who are hunting for treasure, just get absolutely obliterated by a predator. It's really fun just seeing a bunch of Nazis get torn up by this thing, even if it is in black and white. This was another one that wasn't reprinted in the Marvel era, presumably because of all the Nazi symbols in it. But if you can track this down, I think this one is well worth a read. Yes. Okay, next we're looking at Predator Homeworld from 1999. This was 4 issues, modern day setting. It's about an old tribal-looking predator hunting down a group of rogue predators on a killing spree on Earth. The story is told from the perspective of 2 humans who see the whole thing play out. I was a bit disappointed in this one. It doesn't actually take place on the Predator homeworld. You do get a quick glimpse of it at the beginning of the comic, but it's really only for a couple of pages, and it doesn't expand on the Predator lore in any meaningful way. There are some really interesting and unique Predator designs, which I liked, but the art is very stylized. It almost looks like an Invader Zim episode. Doesn't really fit the vibe of the Predator universe. Some interesting ideas and theories about Predator lore, but ultimately doesn't go anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and say no on this one. Okay, next we're looking at Predator Xenogenesis. This is also from 1999. It's 4 issues. It seemed to me that it was set in the near future. It's about a military guy whose entire squad gets wiped out by a predator, and then he's recruited by a predator hunting team known as Spearhead. They basically turn him into a super soldier and give him a bunch of like technologically advanced weaponry and a suit, and they're able to go toe-to-toe with predators. The art isn't great. It's borderline atrocious. The coloring in this is just peak 1990s ridiculousness, and it's also pretty hard to follow. I thought the flow of the comic was all over the place. There were some interesting ideas in this, and there was some decent action in it. You get to see, like a squad of humans who are like fully kitted out, taking on predators like it's nothing, which I thought was a unique scenario, but it's overstuffed with ridiculous characters and a lot of human drama, which I just didn't care about, frankly. Now, in 1999, the Xenogenesis storylines was actually a crossover between Alien, Predator, and Alien versus Predator comic books. Although I've read all of them, and there's really no overlap or crossover in any sense. They all just share the same subtitle. And if you're interested, my buddy Ty and I, we actually already made a full motion comic for Alien Xenogenesis. That'll be linked down below and at the end if you want to check that out. These storylines were critically panned and commercially unviable, and it forced the Predator and Alien comic books to go on hiatus for 10 years. Ultimately, I'm going to have to say no on this one. There's no reoccurring characters in future storylines. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous, and it is very, very skippable. So now we're jumping to 2009 with Predator Free Comic Book Day. This was a short story released on Free Comic Book Day in 2009. It's essentially a setup for the next Predator series. It's only a few pages. It's about a military guy being hunted by a predator. The predator ends up killing a dude, but then a group of like technologically advanced looking predators show up and kill that Predator, but the comic is ultimately just one chase scene to set up the next comic book. Can't recommend this. I don't think it's necessary. You can just skip it and be fine. No. Okay, next we're looking at Predator, Prey to the Heavens. This is from 2009. This is a direct continuation of the Free Comic Book Day storyline with the same creative team, modern day setting. This comic follows a group of mercenaries as they're hunted by the technologically advanced predators that we saw at the end of the previous comic. There's some decent action in this, but I kind of thought the plot was anticlimactic, didn't really go anywhere. I did learn later on that there are some tie-in comics with Alien vs. Predator, which is a different comic book series. This comic stands fine by itself, but it does play into a larger narrative, which I didn't continue on because I'm just doing Predator comics for this video. Ultimately, I'm going to have to say no on this one. I didn't really find it that enjoyable or interesting. I thought that it had some interesting Predator designs and the Predator's motives seemed interesting, but the story doesn't really expand on any of that and just another typical human versus Predator story, which by this point has gotten old. Okay, next we're looking at Predators, released in 2010. It's 4 issues. It serves as a prequel comic to the film Predators. Now, there's a couple of storylines in here. One of them is about a group of Navy SEALs that end up on the same game preserve planet that the characters from the Predators film end up on. They end up running into Lawrence Fishburne's character. He shows up and the comic provides a little bit of backstory for him. Turns out he's been there since the end of the Cold War, so a very, very long time. The backup stories also feature backstory for Adrian Brody's character. I actually really liked these backup stories about Adrian Brody's character because it gives his character's badass skills some validity. I kind of never really bought him in the movie, but this comic establishes him as like a certified badass. So now I kind of want to rewatch Predators just to have a whole new appreciation for this character. I would say if you are a fan of the Predators movie, this is a big yes. It definitely fills in a little bit of lore and some gaps for the characters in that movie. And I think that if you enjoy that movie, you will also enjoy this comic book. So yes, but if you're not a fan of the movie, this is easily skippable. Okay, next there was Predators Beating the Bullet. I don't know why they gave it this subtitle. This is essentially the comic book adaptation of the Predators movie from 2010 with a few little tidbits here and there. The main things that they added is that you get a little bit of backstory for Alice Braga's character and her connection to Dutch and Guatemala. There were some weird canonical errors. I guess because the movie script went through some changes during the production of this comic and it just didn't all quite line up, but it's not enough to really deter the experience. Overall, this is very skippable. I would say just watch the movie. You'll be fine. Next, we're looking at Predators Surviving Life from 2010. This is the sequel to the Predators movie. Adrian Brody's character ascends to the top of the food chain after the events of Predators. He's such a badass that the Predators actually give him a custom set of Predator armor so that he can take on their top hunter, which is a 4-armed Predator. And with the help of Alice Braga's character, they managed to defeat it, but that's really it. And we don't really get any more closure on their storylines in this book. Although in the game Predator Hunting Grounds, it is revealed that eventually that Adrian Brody and Alice Braga's characters actually do get off the Predator hunting preserve, and Alice Braga's character ends up going home to Earth, while Adrian Brody's character ends up going off into the galaxy and trying to find the Predator's homeworld. Although there are no storylines, comic books, novels, or anything that expand upon this story. This is the last time that we see these characters. I really liked this a lot, not just because I'm a fan of the movie, but just because I liked the idea of a human having Predator armor, a 4-armed Predator, and just continuing a storyline that I was engaged with from the film, continuing in comic book form. I think there's a lot to like here, and there's some interesting additions to the lore. I would say that even if you don't really care for the Predators movie, this was definitely worth checking out. Okay, now the next 2 Predator storylines we're going to talk about, these were both solo Predator comics, but they serve as tie-ins to huge crossovers with the Aliens comics, the Prometheus comics, and the AVP comics. These are completely nonsensical on their own, and I did not read them for the purposes of this video. I would say that if you're interested in Predator Fire and Stone and Predator Life and Death, you need to look up some kind of reading guide to fully immerse yourself in that story, but because these aren't purely just Predator comics, we're just going to go ahead and skip them. Next up, we're talking about Predator Hunters from 2017. This is a 5-issue series set in the modern day. This is the culmination of several Predator comics, including Big Game, Bad Blood, and Nemesis. After the events of Nemesis, we learned that Edward Soames, the main character from that storyline, continued his career of hunting predators all across the world. Turns out he got so good at it that he formed an organization that is now being headed up by his great-granddaughter Jaya to track down and kill predators all over Earth. She recruits Enoch Nakai from Big Game, Mandy Graves from Bad Blood, and they head to an island where a predator has been spotted, but maybe the real predators aren't from space in this story. I really enjoyed this a lot. I liked the idea of connecting previous comics into a larger narrative. I kind of felt like that's what these comics were really missing all along. A lot of these stories are just anthology stories of just like a little bit here and there. This one actually takes plot threads that have been hanging for a long time and culminates them into a worthy successor of a storyline. I really enjoyed this. I thought the art was really solid. Plenty of good action and gore. This is a huge yes from me. This is definitely one of the essential Predator comic books. It does also have 2 sequels, the first of which being Predator Hunters 2 from 2018. It's a 4-issue series. It's a direct sequel to Hunters. It follows the team from the previous comic as they venture into Afghanistan to take out a predator that's been killing members of the Taliban. This one is shorter and the plot was a bit thinner than the previous one. I liked the art better on this one, I think, but there's less character development for the characters that I actually care about. This one focuses on one of the newer characters from the series and his backstory and everything, and I just kind of didn't really care for it. I didn't really think it really went anywhere and was hoping for more expansion on characters who had already been established in these comics. But it is what it is. I would say if you enjoyed Hunters 1 and you want to read Hunters 3, I'm just going to let you know right now, I am going to recommend Hunters 3. I would say Hunters 2 is unskippable. And yep, next up, you guessed it, Predator Hunters 3 from 2020. This is 4 issues. This was the last Dark Horse Predator comic. Now, the Predator comic books are exclusively produced through Marvel. It's a direct sequel to Hunters 2. Features the return of John Schaefer from Concrete Jungle, Cold War, and Dark River, and also the return of Lieutenant Legashev from Predator Cold War. The comic features the same team from the previous 2 series going to Central America to track down some predators. Despite the return of John Schaefer, this was a little underwhelming, and I definitely wanted more. Again, I like the idea of bringing back characters that were from previous storylines and using them in newer storylines, but it doesn't really take them in any interesting places or do anything really cool with these pre-established characters. Like, there's still some really solid art, really solid action, good amount of gore. I would say yes on Predator Hunters 3. The whole Hunter series really is definitely worth a read when it comes to Predator comic books. Okay, the next few Predator comics we're going to talk about are Marvel Predator comics. Like I said earlier, Marvel acquired the rights to Predator, and now all Predator comics are produced through Marvel. So luckily, the Marvel comics don't reset or reboot any of the previous storylines. It seems that to me, everything that happened in previous Predator comics still happened in the new Marvel Comics lore. So good on them for not wiping that entire slate of canon. The first Marvel Predator comic we're going to look at is Predator Day of the Hunter. This is from 2022, 6-issue series set in the future of 2056. It tells the story of a girl named Theta whose parents were killed by a predator when she was a child on an alien world. She then decides to take her parents' spaceship and hunt down predators all over the galaxy until she takes her revenge on the one who destroyed her family. This was incredible. I freaking loved the additions to the lore. I loved the future galaxy-spanning setting. This is the kind of Predator comic book I want to see. Just some weird sci-fi stuff, some awesome action. I did think it was a bit light on gore, but the art was really solid. The book flowed really well. I breezed through this book. I was really, really pleased with everything about it, honestly. It was quite good, which I wasn't expecting, frankly, it being, the first Marvel Predator comic. And it does set up some future storylines, which does have some reoccurring characters from the previous canon. So definitely, yes, worth a read. Following Day of the Hunter, we get Predator the Preserve. This is a 2023 series, 5 issues, sequel to Day of the Hunter. It's set 5 years after the previous series. This comic actually picks up a lot of plot threads from the movie Predators and takes place primarily in the same game reserve as the film. The comic plays out very similarly to the film, but with the added addition of Theta actually showing up and rescuing some of them. It also establishes the idea that that predators catch their prey and put their captives in cryosleep before dropping them into the game preserve. This idea is later picked up on by the movie Predator: Killer of Killers, and I think it's a really interesting and unique way of bringing back Predator characters from all across canon. I loved this. I loved the additions to the lore. I loved the sci-fi aesthetic. I loved the fact that it picks up plot threads from Predators. I just wish that we got to see what Adrian Brody's character was up to, but this is a good substitute for that storyline. Highly recommended. This one also upped the gore factor as well. Definitely some more gnarly stuff in this than the previous series, which I was a big fan of. This is another big yes from me. All right, next we're talking about Predator: The Last Hunt. This is from 2024. It's 4 issues. It's the continuing adventures of Theta. It's set 6 years after the previous series and features the return of John Schaefer, who had been stuck in cryostasis for a bit. The story is basically this badass predator who wants to take on Theta, lures her into a trap, and it goes absolutely apeshit. There's some really, really great fight sequences, interesting predator designs, additions to the lore. It brings back John Schaefer, who's a longtime favorite of these comics, and there is a proper amount of gore. Art continues to be solid despite being a different artist for each of these series. Definitely wanted more from these characters though, and this story does set up some future storylines with high potential for the return of some popular characters from this franchise. This is a big yes from me. All right, and the last Predator comic book, we are up to date now with Predator: Black, White, and Blood. This is from 2025. It's an anthology series. It's 4 issues. It's basically a bunch of stories from different time periods, mostly set on Earth. Good writers and artists on this book. They make up some pretty decent stories, although I will say this is totally skippable, especially if you're like me and you're really only interested in expanding upon the Predator lore and the continued stories of the prominent characters from these series. This one doesn't really add much to the overall narrative of the Predator comics, so I'm going to go ahead and say no. And that's it. That is every single Predator comic, not counting the crossovers and all of the Alien versus Predator stuff, just the Predator comics. Overall, I have to say, after immersing myself in these Predator comics for the last couple of weeks, I was a little disappointed by how much I didn't like a lot of these. And it's not that any of them are like bad or like horrendous or anything. It's just that I kind of thought it was boring. Like the artists and writers didn't really get a chance to like do something really cool with like, I don't know, 75% of these stories. It always seemed to me like it was just, okay, here's a human and here's their situation. Oh, and now a predator's here and oh, what's going to happen? And, you know, some comics introduce some new ideas into the canon or to the lore of the predators and whatnot. But a lot of these are also anthology stories that, you know, it's one comic or 2 issues or whatever. And then you never see or hear from these characters ever again. Pretty much a lot of the ones that I said were skippable were just your, you know, pretty bog standard anthology stories with a few exceptions. I did think there were some anthology stories that were definitely worth a read, but that's why I appreciate the comics that pick up storylines that were previously established but like never got a sequel of some sorts. I like the idea of a continuing narrative with characters that I care about, you know, like who doesn't? But that's my thoughts and reviews on every single Predator comic book. I think I went a little crazy doing this. So to make up for it, if you want to help me out, you can definitely subscribe to the channel. You can leave a like on this video. It's going to make me feel a lot better. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.